Awesome.
Oh, there I am. Good evening, everybody. I'm Susan Thornton. Hi, David. It's good to see so many friends. I'm chair of Immigrant Pathways Colorado, as many of you know, and it's my pleasure to have you come here tonight and help us celebrate this cookbook, this wonderful international cookbook that we're having a lot of fun with. And it's a pleasure to welcome you to this book launch party. I've never done a book launch party before, so it's an adventure. As many of you know, Immigrant Pathways is a community-supported nonprofit, and we make small self-development grants to immigrants who are in the country with documents and who are of very low income. And these grants are for things like learning English, applying for citizenship, becoming a medical, dental, or a pharmaceutical aid. We've helped people become dentists. We've helped a woman become a physician, full-fledged physician. So our grants range all over the place, but whatever will help the immigrant family feel more a part of the community and raise the standard of their living, the standard of living. So we depend on donors like you to help people from around the world who want to build a better life for their families. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our co-hosts for the evening. The first is Connie Shoemaker. Connie is secretary of the board for Immigrant Pathways Colorado, and she's the driving force, inspiration, and leading light for development of this international cookbook. The other co-host is Julia Guzman, a talented immigration lawyer who is also a member of our board. And Julia is going to be handling the technical difficulties, I hope not, technical end of things tonight. So take it away, Connie and Julia.
Well, before Connie starts, I'm just going to tell you, if you have a comment or a question, please put it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and let Connie take it over.
Okay, thank you so much, Susan, for the glowing introduction. What really excited me to start with was the word together in our title on this gorgeous book. The reason it excited me was that it was a recipe book that would represent the diverse flavors of our community and reflect a common element, the joy of sitting down together to share a meal with family and friends. Together at the table is a fun way to express one of the goals of IPC, to bridge the gap between us and them through promoting education and training, sharing stories, and learning about each other. The other word, table, is an interesting one. The table is a place of memory, where we become aware of who we are and what we are. Our heritage is often passed down and ultimately bound up in the food we eat. Cooking traditional food is a way of preserving the past and present immigrants' heritage, a shared element that all cultures enjoy and celebrate. Giving birth to this cookbook took about 12 months. Not quite the same as a human being. Actually, a giraffe, I've heard, is 12 to 15 months, but it took a long time. And we had many things to do during that time. We had to find a suitable publisher, one that would allow us to do some stories with the recipes. We had to actually type the recipes into a digital format in order to save money. We copy edited, we proofread, we created a cover and divider stories. And well, here we are. We have been born and launching tonight. I'd like to offer you something else about the cookbook. Offering together at the table to you, why would you want to add this book to your collection? I think there are 3 good reasons. It offers 171 unique recipes from 45 different cultures and countries for you to try in your own kitchen. Let me just give you a quick list of those countries. I think this is pretty amazing. Argentina, Austria, Belarus, and Bulgaria, Brazil, Cyprus, Denmark, Ecuador, England, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Gabon, Germany, Greece, Iraq, Ireland, Israel, and Italy, Japan, Lebanon, Libya, Mexico, and Mongolia, Native America, Nicaragua, Norway, Peru, Philippines, Poland, Puerto Rico, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Scotland, and South Africa, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, Tunisia, the United Arab Emirates, the United States of America, Vietnam, Wales, and the West Indies. Quite an interesting list of countries represented and unique cultures, all who live in this wonderful Denver area. I'd also, I think a second good reason to want this book, and I am gathering that you really do want it. That reason is that it's a book to read. Yes, the recipes, but it's also a great book to just read. One of my next door neighbors told me today that when she got the book, that she didn't really look at the recipes, she wanted to read the stories. And so she went through first and read all the little stories with each recipe and the larger stories on the dividers. And she had a good time just doing that and learning about other people in our community. For example, some of the recipes and the people who submitted them. Every recipe, by the way, has a brief story about the cook, and then the dividers have a more involved story. For example, you'll meet the Jewish cook who celebrates a recipe for latkes. You'll see a video of that tonight. You'll meet the Montana farm girl who used ingredients from her garden and had to kill the chicken in order to put with the noodles. You'll meet the Muslim woman who prepares a special dish for Ramadan, the world traveler who brings home recipes from each country she visits, the Coptic Christian who prepares vegetarian recipes for periods of fasting, and the Vietnamese family whose extended family gathers every Sunday for dinner for a traditional meal. The third good reason, your donation of $20 a book benefits immigrants in our community with self-development grants, as Susan has mentioned, that help build better lives for themselves and their families. 3 good reasons you can't resist. I'd like to just pause for a minute since we're launching, and this is a toast to the 66 lovely people who submitted recipes. Cheers. Let's take a quick look at the preparation of one of these recipes, the latkes recipe, potato pancakes that are a special dish for the Jewish holiday Hanukkah. And these videos deserve a thank you to Stephen Dickerson for creating them. Let's watch the preparation of latkes. Delicious. I hope you enjoyed that little video. And this is one recipe I want to try. I'd also like to introduce you to one of the cooks featured on our divider pages. I'd like to introduce you to Vera Bryan, and she does have an alias. Sometimes she's known as Deborah, and also the vice president of the IPC board. But we have a special assistant, her favorite cooking assistant, Vern, who sometimes goes by Paul and is her husband. Take it away.
Hi, Connie. Thank you so very much. Hey, you guys, I'm so excited to see you all here. And I'm so excited to share with you a story from Together at the Table. And if you happen to notice when Connie was running through all of those names, first of all, Connie, I think we should put that to music in the future. But besides that, if you happen to hear Sweden in there, that's why I'm talking to you guys tonight. My cultural heritage is immersed with Sweden. Both my mother's grandparents were immigrated from Sweden, and my father's great-grandparents immigrated from Sweden. Story has it that when my grandmother came here, she had a few coins sewed into her coat. She had a small valise, and when she landed at Ellis Island, in addition to that, she had the memories of her Swedish recipes. So when I was a very small girl, I remember sitting at my grandmother's kitchen table. I think it was one of those linoleum tables. And my grandma would be at her stove, and she had this apron on that connected at the neck. And I remember this huge safety pin. But back then, the aprons went from here down to your knees and tied in the back. And my grandma would be at the stove, and it was in a corner, and she'd be shaking her cast iron pan to try and keep those meatballs pretty small. But what was interesting about my grandma, which was so much fun for me, probably not for her, but her eyesight was terrible. So every once in a while we'd be sitting here and we'd hear a meatball going doink, 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 and it'd be on the floor. And Grandma Malmgren would be in the corner and she'd be going, oh, yee, there goes another one. So I don't know if this is possible for Julia or not, but I would like her to unmute us all for 1 second, because I want to teach you the name of Swedish meatballs in Swedish. Can you do that, Julia, or no? Because it's really pretty funny. Let's see.
Okay, I just asked everybody to unmute themselves.
Okay, so if you unmute yourself, okay, I want you to think that you're a Swede here, okay, you guys? So the name for Swedish, my husband knows this. Can you say it?
No, not right. Not, no. Not out of context. I'm not going to say it. No.
Okay. But just to give you a hint, the word in Swedish for meat is kött. Okay.
Good.
Kött. And it really is spelled K-O-T-T, etc., etc. And for ball, of course, it's bollar. So on the count of 3, after me, I'll say it first, and then I want you to say köttbullar.
Köttbullar.
Woohoo!
You didn't count them.
There you go.
Okay. So that's how you say köttbullar. So anyways, my grandma would be in the corner shaking the meatballs, this little tiny thing with their Swedish accent. She'd be go, oh yeah, there it goes, another one over there. So as I grew to be a little bit older as a child, when my grandmother wasn't doing this for holidays anymore, my mother took over. And I had very specific memories of her at a wooden countertop with an apron for her that was gingham. I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but it was checked. You know, those little checks with yellow and white, or it's black and white. And it was tied at the waist this time. It didn't come up over the neck. And it had those little tiny cross stitches all the way across through the pockets and everywhere. But anyways, my mother would stand at that counter with her cast iron pan, and she would be shaking that pan to keep those meatballs nice and small. So for every celebration, we had köttbullar, okay, lutfisk, I'm sure you guys have heard about this before, Swedish sausage, Bundes cheese, Swedish rye bread, what is called limpa, and burna burna. So as an adult, I carried that tradition on with my family Oh, nice dog, David. But I dropped the lutefisk, and I don't know why, because it's so delicious. Right, Susan, you like lutefisk, right? But as an adult, I had the opportunity to go to Sweden several times. And one of those times I was doing my internship for my master's degree. And I lived with a family in Sweden. And it was so wonderful to be in that household and have the smells and the memories of my childhood still exist there, even though the culture has changed so much. So I'm going to add this on real quick. And Connie, I timed this and I'm sorry, but when I was listening to or going through my recipes, it was overwhelming what memories came back to me and what I simply hadn't thought of before. And that's why I like this cookbook so much. But I also remembered that when I was in nursing school, one semester, I was working to pay my tuition and my living expenses and my books for myself. And one semester, I was granted a grant, a scholarship. And I thought about that and I thought, for one semester, my level of anxiety went down so much because someone helped me a little bit financially. So when Connie was talking about what this book serves for us, it's not only a reminder of our heritage, which memories just came flooding into me. I mean, you know, I was going through every recipe and what would be the best. And then I remembered this and this. But then I also remembered how helpful it was for me for one semester to have somebody lend me a hand so I didn't have to worry about so much for my education. And I hope through this book, that's what we can do too. So everybody, I don't know if you got Susan's message or not, but this is why we have our glass of soda or tequila or beverage of choice. But you know, you think of Swedes as these massive like Vikings and they're raiding and they're Norwegians and stuff, but really not really. So when they toast, they go, are you ready? Unmute everybody once again. Here we go. So it's really kind of fun, but you go cling-ling.
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 Thanks so much, guys. Thank you.
You are the cling-a-ling queen, Vera.
I take pride in that, Connie. Thank you.
I love it.
Prince consort.
Yeah, and he's my chief, where'd he go? Chief taste tester here for meatballs, by the way.
He looks pretty healthy.
Contractually, if I go over so many minutes of screen time, I get royalties. So she's going to cut me off here soon.
You deserve a royalty.
Okay.
Oh, thank you so much, Vera. That
You're
was
welcome.
great. You will see Vera in a photo on one of the dividers when you donate for this cookbook. I think it's time for another way to celebrate or another drink to celebrate with. How about a mojito? It's time for another video to teach us how to make Jeff's honeymoon mojitos. tasty. I wish we had samples. We have another cook joining us, and he is Jeff Van Dyke. I hope he's up there in our group. Is Jeff there? I see Jeff. Yes, Jeff
I'm
is in
here.
Texas. Hi, Jeff. He's in
Hello.
Texas for work, and he's featured on one of our dividers. And I'd love to have him tell you about his heritage and story. Jeff?
Yeah, hello from Austin. I think this is one of the only things that's good that's come out of COVID is we're able to do this and not miss launch parties. So thank you. I'd like to start by saying it was an incredible moment of reflection for me. Sounds like similar to what probably everybody experienced, like Vera was saying. I think the more we understand about our past, the better equipped we are for our future. I didn't know how fortunate I was. I didn't know how fortunate I was when my great-grandmother was speaking in my grade school classes about her immigration story. I didn't know how fortunate I was in having such a large family with an incredible culture surrounding family and food. I was actually lucky enough at the age of 16 to travel to the small northern Italian town where my great-grandmother was born and raised. One thing that I do remember outside of enjoying that time with my relatives was dinner started at 4 p.m. and it usually ended around 9 p.m., which is something that we don't get here in the U.S., which, 5 courses later, it was really cool. 5 of those courses were made by my relatives from the heart, with difficulty speaking to each other. It was very natural. Usually there was about 10 bottles of wine that accompanied those meals, which was great, especially when you're 16 and you don't get that experience here in the U.S. Where my great-grandmother grew up in northern Italy, it's 100% about family, moments around the table to share, to laugh, and to argue in that special way that only Italians know. Lucrezia Gadina was my great-grandmother's name. I didn't know how fortunate I was to have a childhood in Gadinaville, which was ultimately where my great-grandparents landed. In the town of Pekin, Illinois, central Illinois. My great-grandfather worked in the coal mines, and they ran a self-sustaining farm. They eventually divided Gadinaville into 7 lots for each of the children that they had. I didn't know how fortunate I was to be in a place, Gadinaville, with my great-grandmother, my grandparents, my 4 uncles, my 4 aunts, and anywhere between 5 and 75 cousins, depending on what was going on. Today, when I pull out my family cookbook, or even jump into a new recipe, I feel this intense connection. I know exactly how fortunate I was. I feel all those memories, and I feel my loved ones with me. Every time I pull out that wooden spoon and that bottle of wine, my purpose now is to share all those things with my family and my extended family in hopes to continue that culture. And I hope in some way that this recipe and story can help people tap into those connections and build strong family relationships. I'd like to thank Ron and Suzanne Humphreys for making the introduction to myself, and of course, Connie for putting all this together and allowing me to share this story through food.
Thank you so much, Jeff. You've encapsulated the whole reason, at least from my point of view, one of the main reasons for doing this cookbook, that idea of bringing the whole family together. Thank you so much. By the way, the Van Dyke family also has gorgeous twins. And in the book, you'll see the family picture. Another reason to donate for our book.
Well, his stories brought tears to my eyes, Connie.
When I read it, when he first submitted it, Bob, I the same thing. I felt the same thing. I thought, oh, this is just the kind of person we want. So I'm glad you reacted in that way, Bob and Barb. Okay, let's move on just to, I guess this is time for the chat, right? Any other?
Well, the only questions that were in the chat were from Vera, and she's being silly. She's asking if Jeff is Blake Shelton. And then some other people just saying that they also know, they also have gingham aprons in their family. But if anybody has a question they want to ask, you can either unmute yourself or pop into the chat and type it.
Can we see Mr. Van Dyke cook something?
You'd have to go to his house, I think.
Always welcome.
And actually, this cookbook doesn't just have women cooks, it has some men. And actually, Bob Sample's one of those, and we have other husbands. Susan Thornton's dear husband. Oh, by the way, speaking of Swedish recipes and lutefisk, there is a recipe for lutefisk in the book, and that's from John Thornton. No, it isn't. No, not from John. No, but there's a recipe there for lutefisk if you just can't resist. Any other comments? Benita.
Somebody's asking, yeah, you can read it. Go ahead.
Yeah, Benita Salas. Hi, Benita. She's on a divider page too. What are some of the favorite dishes in Italy, Jeff? Favorite dishes from Italy? If you had to list the top 3.
My favorite night, I wanted to share this, but it's fairly labor intensive. And it's something interesting that we always said about my great grandmother. Her hands were, just from working on the farm and kneading bread and everything, she had the strongest hands that you could ever imagine. And the one recipe that we make for Christmas and for New Year's every year, it's called cappelletti. And you have to make the noodles, you have to make the filling, and it's difficult to make. So to add it into a cookbook, I fear that some people would stop about 2 hours in and say, we should just go to Jeff's house, let him make them. But that was always my favorite. But that's in Northern Italy, it was a lot of meat, and you get different influences in different parts of the country. So they source their own beef, they source their own sheep and everything. And it was so cool to go up there and witness that. We actually, when we go into the small town, one of my cousins was the butcher and the other one ran the market. And then it was just like everything I would imagine from 100 years ago. To go witness that is so cool. But yeah, cappelletti, look it up. And if you dare, give it a shot. If you do, reach out to me individually. I don't know how you want to share, but I could definitely share more recipes. It was hard to come up with one recipe when you've got all these, like Vera was saying, you open these cookbooks and it just brings on all these emotions, and you've got so many options that to pick one is difficult.
Well, if you want to share your email in the chat, maybe people could email you if they want more.
Okay.
Connie, David wants to know how we found contributors to the cookbook, and are they all connected to IPC, and are any of them grant recipients?
Yes. How did we collect them? Well, everyone thought of who they knew who might have an interesting background. We have some recent immigrants. We have immigrants from 4 generations back. I kind of sent a lot of emails out. Other people made requests. People just volunteered. Every time I got a new recipe, I was so excited. I just couldn't resist telling everybody until the recipes grew to the point where we had a book. Let's see. The other part of the question was,
are they connected to IPC? Are they grant recipients?
Oh, yes. One is a grant recipient. And in fact, this is Nisreen, who is from Iraq. And her husband was our first grant recipient. He came on a visa, special interpreter's visa from Iraq. He'd been with interpreting for the US Army, came on a special visa. And we managed to help him find work, Susan did, and we helped them find an apartment and help them along the way, and helped to pay for Rod, the father of the family, pay for his tools for trade for his auto repair job. And so they have a very interesting and may take a little more time like Jeff's recipe to prepare, but some interesting recipes. And there's some other recent immigrants, Libya, and wonderful Ethiopian recipes, some more recent immigrants and some with generations before. Any other questions?
Well, I thought that was extremely fun and interesting, and I really want to thank you so much, Connie. You've been really the driver behind this project, and Julia, Vera, Vern, my goodness, and Jeff, thank you so much. It was really fun to hear more about your family and the food you've enjoyed over the years. And to everybody else, if you've enjoyed this lunch party as much as I have, I hope you will support Immigrant Pathways by donating $20 per book, and that includes shipping. So it's a real deal. And there's 3 ways you can donate to receive a cookbook. You can go to our website, immigrantpathways.org, and click on the cookbook link. You can donate directly. You can send a check for $20 per book to our P.O. Box, which is Box 401, Littleton 80160. Or you can donate directly via Zelle to info@immigrantpathways.org. And if you do that, please add the number of books you're ordering and your mailing address so that we can get the books to you. But also please keep watch for our next, before I do that, I wanted to mention, beginning this week, we are very proud to announce that you will also be able to purchase together at the table at the Tattered Cover bookstores. You can buy them at Union Station or the Colfax store or at Aspen Grove. So we're really proud of that. And also do keep watch for our next Colorado Authors series, which will feature Sarah Jackson, The House That Love Built, in the evening of May 11th. So kind of put that on your calendar. It's another free Colorado author evening. So thank you all so much for being with us. It's been really fun. I loved it. And thanks you again for joining us tonight.
Yay to all of you. What a wonderful program. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.